Hi, my name is Joshua Garno, and when my son was 12 months old, he had a traumatic incident which caused swelling in his brain, and he was no longer to generate any new motor skills or speech. His development was frozen in time for the last 2.5 years. He's now nearly 3.5 years old. I thought a few days ago when I came to this realization of what had happened and the timing of it, I thought I was hopeless. I didn't have any hope. I said, there's no treatment for a brain injury, but I was wrong.
What the mind can conceive and believe it can achieve. So that's kind of our little saying.
In April of 2002, we had our first child, Sophia, and we were really excited, obviously, being parents for the first time. During the last trimester, Megan had an ultrasound, and it showed that something had went wrong. The initial diagnosis for Sophia was that she had cortical vision impairment, hydrocephalus, and brain injury, more commonly known as cerebral palsy. We're really concerned about, what life would be for her with such a profound brain injury. After we recovered from the shock, we just went to work figuring out what our plan of action was going to be. So being a pediatric occupational therapist and her mother a pediatric physical therapist, we decided that instead of just using a traditional Western allopathic mode of treatment, that we really wanted to go full on with an integrative mode of treatment, because there's no pill you can take to fix a brain injury. I had heard and read some research studies about hyperbaric oxygen therapy being used with non-healing wounds. And I'd also read some studies about people post-stroke using hyperbaric oxygen therapy, and got really interested in potentially pursuing this as a mode of treatment.
Major applications of hyperbaric are things like stroke, cerebral palsy, brain injury, anoxia, blue baby. It's a known treatment for MS in England. A neural, immune system, lymph system, detox, gut and stool function. It's kind of a phenomenon across the board. If the area of the body needs improvement, it'll improve. If it doesn't, it'll stay the same. You're changing the partial pressure of oxygen so that you're diluting more oxygen into fluids and tissues that normally don't carry oxygen, which can be very beneficial for the cells in the body and can be very not beneficial for viruses, bacteria, and cancers. Creating that state in the body is quite profound.
We bought a hyperbaric chamber when Sophia turned 1 year old from a company by the name of Oxy Health. She wasn't old enough to get into the chamber by herself, and her mom did a lot of the other therapies, and so it was my job to actually be Sophia's hyperbaric partner for about 10 years.
My dad would read to me a lot, and we would just sit there and laugh about funny stories, and we would call certain friends and family.
Like I would try to lift her up with my feet or something, but she never really. I'm pretty rambunctious, but Sophia was never.
Not into that. I think using the chamber kind of relaxed me. I remember that I felt like I could learn better the next day. It was neat to see.
So a lot of our father-daughter time was spent inside that chamber, and I'm glad we did it. It played a role to the new neuronal pathways which she grew. As parents, our job was to set the foundation with nutrition, with oxygenation of the brain. Part of our job was to do therapy, to do books, to do reading, to do learning, to do a brain food diet, to have the right balance of omega-3s, 6s, and 9s, to have antioxidant foods.
Okay, I want to just pause and because I wasn't sure what he was talking about when he said Omega 369, I thought that was like the stage name for a new rapper or something. But I did some research about what Omega 369 are. They're fatty acids that the body needs to generate its functions, especially in the brain. But I saw this video and basically explaining that if you eat healthy foods, you're getting a lot of those. You should be getting all of them if you eat a balanced diet. The problem is people in Asia, in that area, they eat fish practically every day, but they don't eat a lot of poultry or beef or other kinds of foods. It's mostly fish, which are high in omega-3. And then people in the Western world eat a lot of poultry, but they eat very little fish because it's not as easily accessible. It's more expensive. So here's a video that kind of explains it. And omega-9 is found in a lot of vegetable oil and certain foods, animal fat, certain things like that, or nuts that pretty much anybody's going to be eating, even if you're whatever your specific type of diet is, you're probably going to get enough omega-9 is why in this video he doesn't even mention omega-9, just the difference between omega-3 and 6. So let's watch this.
Hi guys, in this video we're going to talk about omega-6 fatty acids and inflammation. Now as you may not know, or you may know, omega-6 basically will increase your inflammation. Omega-3 fatty acids decrease inflammation. They're anti-inflammatory. Okay? Now, in America, the ratio is 1 to 20 omega-6. In other words, people consume way, way more omega-6 than omega-3. Okay? Ideally, it needs to be 1 to 1. And what does that mean? It tells us what we need to be eating. Because look at, these are the omega-6 fatty acid foods: poultry, nuts, vegetable oils like corn oil, grains, flax oil, pumpkin seed oil, canola, soybean, cottonseed, sunflower. But some of these here do have omega-3, but they're heavier on the omega-6 fatty acids. So these will tend to create more inflammation if you don't have these right here: fish oils, cod liver oil, sardines, fish, anchovies, grass-fed eggs, grass-fed beef, things like that.
So what I took from that is that unless you eat fish as much as you eat any other type of protein, you're probably going to be deficient in omega-3. So it's good to have an omega-3 supplement. And he recommends, and I've heard other experts, such as my mother, recommend a high quality fish oil, or even better, cod liver oil, which I didn't want to take when I was a kid because I didn't like the taste. But if it's something your child needs for recovery, then you just have to mix it with something that tastes good so that they'll take it. Let's go back to the story.
To use natural, clean foods, and then to just spend a lot of time inside the hyperbaric chamber so that the brain could do the job that it wants to do. The brain wants to engage in neuronal regeneration.
It's extremely stackable. In other words, usually when it's combined with other primary therapies, then you'll get a better effect from your primary therapy. The patients will be able to start moving in an area or start functioning in an area. It's this repeated exposure to hyperbaric oxygen that causes this phenomenon to occur. The other phenomenon that occurs is angiogenesis, creating new blood flow into the area. You see like stroke patients with the left side of their body that was paralyzed. We put them into a chamber, and sometimes they'd be able to wiggle their toes or their fingers on the parallel side. It's pretty wild.
Over about a 10-year period, we took over 1,000 dives, and Sophia had this amazing amount of brain growth. Her vision has improved dramatically. She can see well enough to no longer have that label of legal blindness is huge.
I remember that it felt exciting being able to know that I could walk independently at 7 years old, that I was able to explore a lot more, explore my surroundings and environment. So everyone kind of thought that I was going to be in special ed, kind of, behind everyone else. But the summer that I was going into 5th grade is when I did the reading program and learned how to read. At the end of the summer, it showed that I was in 8th grade level of comprehension and 6th grade level of reading. My favorite subjects are social studies and language arts. I do really well in social studies. But science, I've noticed for me in science this year, you have to comprehend a lot more, so I'm having to work a lot harder and go to certain study sessions.
You could do hyperbarics every day, all day, but if you're not eating well, if you're not hydrating well, if you're not leading a clean lifestyle with regard to nutrition, then you're probably only going to see minimal impact by any technology. And it's those tiny bits of progress. It's those tiny bits of efforts that you engage on a program, and you do it 6-7 days a week. It's not the path of least resistance. It's not the path for people who are lazy. But I can tell you, after 14 years, when I turn around in the rearview mirror and look at the results of what these efforts became, I'm looking at her across the room here, and I'm just a proud father of a 14-year-old girl who is not in a special education classroom. She has a walker. She walks independently in our home. She has cortical vision impairment, but she is no longer classified as being legally blind. She had some seizures early on when she was small, but knock on wood, in the last decade, she hasn't had a single seizure that we're aware of. She's a bright, young, smart girl who's going into her teen years with, the typical nuances of teen life and her wants and, I believe that the science behind mild hyperbarics and hyperbaric oxygen therapy in general is solid. Evidence is mounting and growing that this potential, this possibility for neuronal regeneration, for brain growth is possible for everyone. Every morning before you go to school, I say what the mind can conceive and
believe it can achieve. And I think I've executed that very well.
I agree.
Okay, so what is this technology and how does it work? I was wondering what's happening in my child's brain when he tries to talk or he tries to interact socially. He looks like almost he's in pain and he turns his head away and he just can't handle the stress of it. And I was wondering what's going on. So we have to understand what's happening with my child. And I found this video that I think explains it better than I could.
So today we're going to be talking about hyperbaric oxygen therapy and autism. So when a typical person focuses on a task or even generates speech, the brain is doing a lot more work and there's an increased perfusion of blood flow to the brain. It's this increased supply of blood flow to the brain that provides more oxygen and glucose, thus giving cells the needed energy to perform that particular task. However, in autistic children, several studies have shown the opposite. These children actually have a diminished blood flow to begin with, and when their brain is actually attempting to perform a task, such as generating speech or focusing, their blood flow does not increase, so not giving the cells the extra oxygen and glucose that they need. The diminished blood flow can be seen with clear correlation to many core autistic symptoms and behaviours. For example, when the thalamus is hypoperfusioned, the results are repetitive and an unusual behaviour. When hypoperfusion is found in the temporal lobes, the result is the desire for the sameness or a social and communication impairment. Reduction of cerebral blood flow results in social defects such as the ability to feel emotions, understand others' emotions, respond to danger, and also anxiety. If you look at the PET scan, you can clearly see the difference in the brain before and after hyperbaric oxygen therapy. See.
So that describes my child perfectly. all those symptoms, and it makes perfect sense. So I was wondering if there was actual scientific evidence and scientific studies that were done that show the how much improvement could be gained by using the hyperbaric chamber rather than just using nutrition, exercise, and physical therapy, and occupational therapy and speech therapy alone. And this is a video I found about that.
So there was a control group, and the control group was getting PT and OT therapy. So here's a graph that comes right out of that study that I'm referring to. And
now, these results are insane in this study. So basically, this is 4 groups of children with diagnosed with cerebral palsy that we already looked at the different videos. The first group was given the regular treatments that are given to all children with cerebral palsy, except they were not given the oxygen, the hyperbaric oxygen therapy. The other 3 groups were given the hyperbaric oxygen therapy, and their increase in motor skills were 3 times the amount of the group that were given all the other treatments, but minus the hyperbaric oxygen therapy. So this is just these studies are insane. In other parts of the world, they're using this as a regular treatment in hospitals. In the U.S., as with all things that work too well, they are stalling on approving it as a treatment that you can use with your insurance for reasons that I'm not going to get into in this video. So here's another video from the Mayo Clinic describing what hyperbaric oxygen therapy does.
Welcome back to Mayo Clinic Radio. I'm Dr. Tom Shives.
And I'm Tracy McRae.
Hyperbaric oxygen therapy, also known as HBOT, involves breathing pure oxygen in a pressurized room or in a tube. And it's well-established treatment for decompression sickness, which is a hazard of scuba diving. Have you done scuba diving? Did
No.
it go too deep? No.
No,
Okay.
but I'm familiar with this.
All right, but that's not all it's good for. It can be used to treat serious infections, bubbles of air in your blood vessels, and I think that's what happens when you go a little deep when you're scuba diving. It can also be used to treat wounds that won't heal, even carbon monoxide poisoning.
In a hyperbaric oxygen therapy chamber, the air pressure is increased to 3 times higher than normal air pressure. Under these conditions, your lungs can gather more oxygen than would be possible breathing pure oxygen at normal air pressure. Your blood carries the oxygen throughout your body to help fight bacteria and promote healing.
Yeah, so both the large vessels and then in the diabetic patients, and we also see in our radiation injury patients, the small micro vessels are void or very limited. So the question is, how does oxygen delivery help the wounds heal? Well, those tissues are struggling. They're at risk of infection. White blood cells don't work with good or with inadequate levels of oxygen. The tissues aren't receiving the stimulus that they need from the growth factors. And hyperbaric oxygen dissolves large amounts of oxygen in the blood, fluid part of the blood, not the red blood cells, and can get into those areas that are marginally perfused. It won't revive dead tissue. It won't revive tissue that's truly ischemic without any flow. But if we can squeeze some fluid part of the blood into those tissues, it has the hope of regenerating or rejuvenating some of the tissues that are just on the margin.
That's the important key point right there, that if there's tissue there and it's not completely dead, it's just lacking enough oxygen to properly function and progress and grow, especially in children or someone who has recently had an injury or a stroke. If you can get the oxygen levels higher and force the oxygen into those areas, you can increase the healing and increase the normal function of those tissues. And that's what we're hoping to do with our child. Now, we decided to buy this Viteris 320 from OxyHealth. This is the industry standard for home hyperbaric oxygen therapy chambers. There's 3 reasons why we chose this one. For durability, it has a full 5-year warranty, and many people have said they've used it for many, many more years than that. Safety, it's the industry standard for safety, and it's very important when you're doing a home health product. And also size, it's big enough, since if you have a small child, you're going to have one parent inside the chamber with the child, so it has to be large enough for that to happen. And this is a big commitment. This requires the entire family's participation. You're going to need one parent inside with the child, and then the other parent or another adult, somebody outside the chamber, to pressurize the chamber, and then when they get in, and then depressurize it before they get out, and then monitor the gauges for all the proper levels of oxygen and pressure for safety during the treatment. Treatments last anywhere from 60 minutes to 2 hours at the most per treatment, and the standard treatment recommended is 5 or 6 times per week for 8 weeks. And then after that 8 weeks, you take between a 2-3 week, maybe 4 week break, and then you start the process over if the wounds are not completely healed, or the tissue, whatever you're trying to regenerate. And I'm going to video document my child's progress every day. So I'm going to have a full documentation on a daily basis of these treatments and measure his progress. So I'll keep releasing videos periodically to show what has happened and where we are in his journey. This is not the end of my child's story. This is just the beginning. Right now, there is no way we can afford to buy this hyperbaric oxygen chamber on our own. So in order to start treatment as soon as possible, to not lose any more tissue or any time in generating those neural pathways, we're starting the GoFundMe page. The page looks like this. If you want to go to it and help out, type in GoFundMe.com/F/help-pay-4-Kales-HBOT-chamber. And that will get you to the GoFundMe page. I appreciate anything you can do. And if you can't, don't worry about it. We all have to take care of our families the best way we can.
You ready to start walking? Come on. Come on. You ready to start walking? Come on. Ooh, good job. You're a musician. You're composing such lovely music. Good job. What? Are you playing with your toys? Huh? Playing with a turtle? Yeah? Yeah?